Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Apurva, and I'm the Assistant Coordinator at the Distance Education Department at NLSIU. We welcome you all to this webinar in Cyber Law and Cyber Forensics postgraduate diploma. We are just waiting for a few more people to join. So they are joining in as I speak. So let's wait for everybody to join in, and we shall start in another minute or so. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for joining. We will begin now. Again, a very warm welcome to all of you who have made the time to join us for this webinar on a Saturday evening. Very welcome from on behalf of the Distance Education Department at NLSIU. My name is Apurva Gupta. I am the Assistant Coordinator at the department, and I'm joined by my colleagues today. First, Professor Dr. Nagaratna, who's also the program coordinator for our PG diploma in cyber law and cyber forensics. Dr. Nagaratna has been with us at NLSIU for over a decade. She's also the coordinator for the Advanced Center on Research, Development and Training in Cyber Law and Cyber Forensics, and has under her name numerous papers and international research collaborations, as well as expert teaching experience in the field. I welcome Dr. Nagaratna to the webinar.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
While ma'am is doing that, I will also take this opportunity to introduce my colleague, Ms. Sushila Suresh, who is the facilitator at the department for over a decade. She has also joined this webinar to share her share of wisdom, and will be happy to answer the queries later in the webinar. So we will open up the forum for discussion towards the end of the webinar. But first, let me begin by introducing NLSIU to you first. So National Law School of India University was actually the first law university to be established in India in 1986. And it was set up with a special mission to pioneer legal education reforms and to really anchor the transformation of the Indian legal system through research and policy interventions. For 30 years now, over 3 decades, the institution has remained a leader in the field, and we have sustained #1 ranking in various national and international rankings, including the very recently announced National Institutional Ranking Framework has also declared us #1 in the field of law. We are very proud to have an exceptionally high achieving group of alumni who have furthered the vision of NLSIU in the legal field and also in various other fields that they have chosen to be a part of. They have led them and have been socially responsible to contribute to those fields. Let me also take this opportunity to briefly introduce you to our department, the Department of Distance Education. So this was formed to meet one of the foundational pillars of NLSIU's mission to be inclusive and to really make education accessible to those who may be limited for various reasons to come physically to campus. Therefore, the design of the programs offered by the department is hybrid, and it enables self-paced learning. They are designed to empower candidates to expand their knowledge of the law and the legal systems, and to really think critically about the law and learn ways in which you can critically engage with the legal systems. Our curricula is contemporary and taught by some of the leading experts in India. These programs are very beneficial for those of you who are looking to go further in your career and also are looking to be leaders in your field. We offer a lot of interdisciplinary approaches. So we study different subjects with the primary subject of the law. And we also attempt to engender a kind of inclusivity which is not offered in many other programs, as we invite a lot of professionals from various fields to be a part of these programs. And the applications are open to anybody from any discipline with an undergraduate degree. We also welcome people from all backgrounds and all age groups. And once you become a part of the department, you have access to an outstanding alumni network in India and abroad who have been pioneers and thought leaders in their fields and have also been a part of the department. So, with that, I will offer the forum to Dr. Nagaratna to take you through the course and also to briefly introduce herself. Professor Nagaratna.
Hi, thanks, Apurva. A very good evening to everyone. As Apurva has already mentioned, the whole attempt at the law school that began with DD courses was integrating law with other social sciences, and now that's getting expanded to integration with other actual sciences. So, and one such attempt is seen through PG Diploma in Cyber Law and Cyber Forensics. So let me briefly tell you why this whole course got initiated. So around 7 to 8 years back, the Minister of Information Technology, in fact, initiated this entire program, and they found that NLSI is the best place where this kind of an activity of expanding the awareness about the cyber law, as well as training the stakeholders involved in regulation of cyber crimes and then other aspects related to cyber law. So they felt that we should establish a law school as that pioneer institution which should take up this task of expanding the knowledge in the domain. So apart from funding a research center at the law school, they also helped us in initiating this program. So the entire course was designed, structured with the help of experts, from the field in the country. So this, in fact, also has the involvement of people who were also involved in drafting the cyber laws of the country. So therefore, the approach was to integrate law and science and technology. And hence the course is also quite comprehensive. So this is how the course began, and since this is a domain that's fastly changing, though this has just been a few years old course, but we've already changed the syllabus to suit the demanding changes in the society because of technological advancement that's fastly happening. So on the whole, the course focuses equally on both legal as well as forensic aspects, that is cyber forensic aspects, and thereby integrates the two important domains. In fact, this course, as far as I know, is the only course where you see the integration more effectively happening, because across the country you either have trainings on the legal aspects or just on the forensic aspects. And this is where we see even the technological issues being debated from jurisprudential aspect, from the legal aspect. So therefore, the entire technical aspect will be discussed along with, that is parallel to the legal aspects. And the course largely covers the Information Technology Act, which is in fact one of the most important law when it comes to promoting usage of cyber technology as well as preventing abuse of cyber technology. That related issue comes up. So the course primarily involves issues relating to, say, abuse of technology, that is forms of cyber wrongs, including cyber crimes. So we will discuss about each form of cyber crime, both technically and legally, which means that some of the sessions you'll have technical experts coming from the field and explaining how these offenses are in fact committed, can be prevented and all, that is technology based issues. And the other sessions will be on how do you legally regulate it, so what provision will apply, how are evidences collected. So that's where we see the integration of the two fields coming in. So, and then we also discuss about the institutional framework that the country has set up apart from the legal framework. So, what are the institutions through which these offenses gets regulated, and that includes both, not just the law enforcement agencies, that is not just the police and the court, but we also look at parallel institutions through which these offenses are regulated on one hand, as well as cybersecurity is ensured on the other hand. So, which means we'll also look at the roles played by adjudicating authorities, the CERTINs, etc. And one of the most complicated issues that affects the implementation of cyber law has always been seen that lack of integration between the two domains, the law and the technology. So we keep that in mind, and therefore design our classes in such a way that you get to see the technical procedure along with the legal procedural discussion. For example, how do you collect the evidence from the crime scene? So here we're not talking about a conventional crime where you have evidences that are tangible in nature. It's not in form of fingerprints, or it's not in form of a knife or a revolver. So over here we're talking about evidences which are intangible. So we do show the procedure through which evidences are collected, they're stored, they're preserved. So basically, the cyber forensic classes are also handled by the experts, along with the legal inputs coming wherever it is essential. Since it's a distance education course, so we do have certain reservations or limitations. We might not be able to give hands-on training to the scholars, but we ensure that we achieve the object at least by way of providing demo-based classes. So we do demonstrate how cyber forensic procedure needs to be conducted, and most importantly, we do try to integrate into case study based approach. So we take up cybersecurity incidences as a case study and see how technical and legal procedure applies. So this is about one aspect of the course. So on the other hand, we also look at related laws, provisions, not just from the Indian law, wherever essential. We also make comparative study, and also some of the issues we debated by looking into the international law framework. Since this is a law that's fastly evolving, developing, and also we don't have an established law framework as such, but we do look at certain regional conventions that might be helpful in finding solutions for the problems that the country is facing. So that's about the cyber wrong, cyber crime perspective. And also, since it's also about a course relating to cyber law, we also look into the aspects related to e-governance, e-commerce, role played by agencies like Computer Emergency Response Team, and the need of protecting critical infrastructure. So all this is also covered, and also like other ancillary issues like intellectual property rights protection on cyberspace. So, so all these are the content. So how we've structured the course is that we start with understanding the basic concepts of technology and the law simultaneously, that is related to cyber law and cyber technology. And then we come to the forms of wrongs, and then we come to the procedural aspects. So we look at both substantive as well as procedural legal aspects for under both civil and criminal law domain. And then we look into evidentiary aspects, forensic aspects, and then we get into other issues relating to e-commerce, e-governance, IPR protection, etc. Our course has helped a lot of people who are involved in drafting the policies. In fact, like we've had the examples of some of our alumni of the course who have drafted privacy policies for agencies, including MNCs. So, and then we've also had incidences of people taking up cyber law related consultancy. So this is where, since we get people both from technology background as well as law background, we see like a lot of interaction happening in the class, beyond the class, on other platforms and all. And many times you've seen how the integration has been led to a lot of policy draftings. So for example, there were like a couple of people who are involved in drafting privacy policies, not just for MNCs, but even as a model for other agencies. So we've seen like how actually the domain knowledge is used after the course and in the course of the program as well. And then we usually had people from different backgrounds. So we get scholars from the law enforcement agency, IT sector, CS, CA. So because of the kind of scholars, the background from which they come, that helps us in understanding the whole issue in more a comprehensive manner. So we just don't restrict it to law and technology, but sometimes even go beyond that, since this is one domain which affects almost all of us, cyber technology being something that's been used in almost all aspects of life and official transaction communication, the kind of a scenario. So keeping that in mind, we've designed the course to take care of all the needs that are affecting this particular arena, that are relevant to this particular arena. And the whole object of the course is to develop techno-legal experts. So not just legal experts, neither just technical experts, but techno-legal experts, especially if somebody is from the law background. So one benefit that they would get is if they are like advocates or otherwise only involved in implementation of the law, or advocacy, etc. So usually one challenge that currently the entire system is facing, legal system is facing, is lack of this integration of the two domain. So when evidences are produced, it's very hard to understand the evidence, appreciate the evidence. So that's why the forensic inputs helps the person from law background to better present a case. So similarly, vice versa, when it comes to somebody from technology background. So maybe you understand how data is processed and all, but when we understand the policy within which data should be used, data should be processed, should be transferred. So that's when we can achieve the object of even the law and not just the course. So that is an attempt that we always do through this course. So that's in brief as to how we conduct the course. So if there are any specific questions, I can take up. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for going over the course in such great detail. We will now move into the question answer session. May I now request everybody who has a question to raise your hand on Zoom, and we will try and give an opportunity to some participants one by one to articulate their question. Meanwhile, we also have received some questions in the chat box. So some of those are being answered by us, but those which are related to the course, and I think Professor Navaratnam might be a better person to answer those, I will direct them to her. But let's first hear from some of our participants. So Prashant has a question. Prashant, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, this is Prashant Mani. Hi to all. My question is this course is approved by UGC as order, as we can see the order in your website, which has been filed by you against UGC, and you won the award. So can you put some light on that aspect?
Thank you for your question. Sushila ji, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, with regard to the course recognition, the High Court has ordered the UGC to recognize the course, and we are in process of communicating with the UGC. Shortly, it will be done.
Thank you, Sushila.
Okay, thank you.
And also just to add to that, see, UGC recognition and all is more relevant if you're looking at using the degree for academic purpose and all. So if it's just to get the knowledge in the domain, especially as a consultant or an advocate and all. So anyways, I think you should look at the purpose for which you're taking up the course. So if it is to understand the domain, I don't think that should be a constraint. And in fact, like as I said, we have set certain objectives. So to achieve that, the course is well designed and well executed. But yes, somebody, if he's looking this for an academic purpose, yes, you can have a thought about the UGC requirement. Thank you.
Abraham, please go ahead and ask your question. Abraham Alex.
I'm currently pursuing the course of Chartered Accountancy. I have finished the intermediate and basically trying to join for this. I would like to know how this course will be beneficial for me as far as the ED or tribunal is concerned. Is this course actually good for me representing a client or that?
I think today one of the upcoming domain has been that accounting, forensics and all that. So that's one aspect that in which we'll not get into in detail in this course. So the object of this course is to understand the cyber law framework and the technical aspects involved in it. So how would that be helpful for you? Yes, even like the financial frauds aspects are all like nowadays getting committed on the internet or on cyberspace or with the usage of cyberspace. So at least understand the law framework in this regard. So when you're doing like financial auditing, and in fact, like nowadays, some of the institutions are also insisting for cybersecurity auditing, privacy compliance auditing. So that way, this becomes a very good combination with the field that you come from. So overall, like compliance to the law is something that can be measured looking at the law frameworks, and that's what like I've seen at least from our alumni who come from similar background using the domain, the knowledge of this particular domain. So therefore, yes, we do discuss about some aspects of RBI guidelines, financial regulations, that which gets related to online payments, online financial frauds, etc. So that's directly linked to your field. But otherwise, most of the other aspects are something that I think any field is related to. So it will be helpful in understanding that overall law and policy aspect.
So I've completed my BLLB honors and I'm just waiting for my last year result. And instead of doing a PG course, I'm just preferring to do this diploma course in cyber law. So do you think that a regular the PGD will be helpful for me rather than doing an ML?
See, that depends on what you want to pursue thereafter. Are you planning to practice? Then again, in which domain you want to practice also would matter. So if you're
I
looking
have
at
an interest on the cyber law.
So if you're looking at taking up cases from the field, yes, this will be a very good opportunity to understand the digital evidence aspect, forensic aspects, etc. Like for example, we all know today in most of the cases we rely on CDs, pen drives, etc. But even admitting this as an evidence is a very challenging aspect unless we know the forensic aspects involved. So that's where it will be definitely a very good input as a lawyer to get from the course. And in fact, already in Western countries, advocates, especially who are practicing in the field, are required to undergo this forensic training and all. So slowly that will also come up in a country like ours, and if getting prepared for it, definitely. And today, like most of the cases, we do depend on digital evidence.
Yes.
So understanding this area definitely will be helpful to practice. So if it is a PG, so PG is more relevant if you again get into academics and all. So otherwise, otherwise any departments that require somebody to have a PG course. So just to get the knowledge about this domain, I think as a lawyer, this will be definitely a useful course to pursue.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Srikanth, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I just want to know if there are any specific qualification criteria that you are looking at. I have a couple of friends who would like to join, but they have an MBA degree, but they don't have a formal bachelor degree, but they have got work experience. I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
So we do require an undergraduate degree from a reputed institution as an eligibility criteria.
Okay.
So every applicant needs to have that to be eligible to apply. That's the very basic that we ask for.
Oh, okay. But some of them have got solid work experience. Won't that be counted? I mean, they come from an IT industry with 15, 20 years of work experience. That along with the qualification won't it suffice is the question.
I understand.
UGC mandates that.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We understand that and we value that experience. However, these are our current institutional rules. So for at least for this year, we need a undergraduate degree as the minimum eligibility criteria. Kunal, please go ahead and ask your question.
A very good evening to the esteemed faculty. Ma'am, I'm presently pursuing law course and I'm in final year as such. I have two questions. First of all, is there any specific system requirements, say a particular computer system required for the completion of this course? Secondly, my question is that since this is a PG diploma course, although LLM is at one place, but as we complete this PG diploma course, will that be valid if we write it in our cards, like in our CVs, if we mention it that yes, we have completed this PG diploma? Does this is this putting any good weightage? Yes, we do get knowledge, but is it valid for that matter as well?
Kunal, if you can repeat the first question. Sorry, I missed that. The first question.
Ma'am, my
You're
first
pursuing
question was
your
that.
law.
My first question was that do we require any specific system requirements, say a particular type of PC or computer like that?
Not necessary, Kunal, because most of the classes, as I said, it's not hands-on. This is a demo that we use as a mode to demonstrate forensic classes. See, otherwise, law being a theoretical subject, it will be just the lecture-based. And as our colleagues are mentioning, so you will get reading material, PPTs and all. So when it comes to forensic sessions where we show how evidences are extracted, etc., it is usually demo-based. So you can just see that. If you want to practice it, I think that can also be done on any system. So, in fact, these are the things that we clear through the course to the scholars. So therefore, there's no requirement of having any system, nothing like that. Even when we teach the course, we don't insist you to have a licensed forensic tool. So we do teach the course along with both licensed as well as open source tools, which means something that you can freely avail from internet sources, use it, practice on your own. So therefore, there's no such requirement. Then the second one is in terms of knowledge, expertise. Definitely, it's a very valuable course. So it all depends on how you use it later in your domain, whether you just mention it in the CV or otherwise use the knowledge. As I said, we've had alumni who have drafted a lot of policies. I don't want to name it now. So maybe when we get into classroom teaching, I can give you examples of how our scholars have contributed to the countries as well as a global level policy framing and all. So it just depends on how you use the knowledge that you gain in the course.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Sirisha, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, everyone.
Yes, please go ahead and ask your question.
I just want to know when will the books available and how can we go through the subjects and topics? Will they be available online or will we get any reference or something like that?
Right, Sirisha. So once you have paid the course fee,
Yes, I have done that. Everything has been done.
Okay, you're an admitted student, so welcome on board. So in about August, you would be receiving the course material on soft copy. The material can also be made available to you in hard copy for a small fee. However, I want to, tell everybody that we are all aware of the ongoing pandemic. So it may take you a little long. It may take a little longer to reach you than usual. We'll take the next question from Srini, if I'm pronouncing that right. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Right. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Right. Thank you for the webinar, and I have also registered already, so I'm looking forward to the start of the course. Right. So I have two questions. My first question is, while I realize that this is a distance education program, do we have the opportunity to visit the campus, interact with experts, meet people, use the library, or have some kind of networking with the professors and the experts more face to face? That's my first question. And the second question is, after this course, will we become alumni of National Law School University?
Right. So there are contact classes which are organized every month on campus. So definitely, if you are able to travel to Bangalore and to our campus, you will be able to meet with faculty and with experts and also your peers, some of whom may be traveling like you. This year, we will also attempt to make most of the classes available online. And some other course material, interactive material to be made available online. So those provisions would be there. With regard to your second question about being the alumni, you will be the alumni of the distance education department, which is an integral part of the National Law School. So hope I've answered both of those questions.
Yes, thank you. One part of the first question was, can we use the library and other facilities at the campus?
You will have limited access to the library because right now it's built for the regular students. But if there is a specific course book that you would like to access, please do reach out to us and we will attempt to facilitate that for you.
Sure, thank you.
Navdeep, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, hey, everybody. I'm coming from a purely technical background, working as a security architect. So I would like to understand how this course would help in shaping the careers of the technocrats into legal aspects as well. Because I believe earlier Dr. Nagaratna has mentioned that the plan for this course is to build techno-legal persons. So that is one part, and the second part would be there's an upcoming law, I think, coming in India, which we call as a PDPA. So on what type of other laws that we would get some sort of clarity during these sessions, and how they can actually help anybody coming from technical background to develop their career better.
So to begin with, you will have paper 1, which is in fact an introduction to law and legal systems. So that's where you'll understand about basic concepts, principles of the law and various branches of law in general. Coming to cyber law, yes, we do start with, as I said, like, even the conceptual understanding of certain terms that are used in the law, the principles that are integrated into the law framework. So definitely we will keep in mind that, we'll have both kind of students, somebody who doesn't know the technology at all, is purely from law background, or like somebody who doesn't know anything about the law since they're only from technology or other field, or from the other field. So we do start with that basic concepts, principles, terms and all, and explain how the entire legal system functions, and then take you to the important aspects of the law. As you also mentioned today, in fact, the focus has been about data protection, privacy protection and all. So usually our focus is on understanding the current law framework, but at the same time, we do also look into the forthcoming law. For example, current batch, we had a detailed discussion of the current privacy law. At the same time, we also briefly looked into the possible impact of PDP bill if it is passed. So we might not get into the details of it because many times, and in fact, this is like fourth or third draft law which is pending before the parliament. So if it gets passed in the course of this 1 year, we will definitely focus more on it. But otherwise, we'll give an output about how the forthcoming law will be. So like this will pick up important regulations, etc., which are currently applicable, which will apply in future, and try to keep our course as updated as possible.
Ma'am, there's a question on the chat which says by Ankit, who is working in a bank and wants to pursue his career further in the field of financial fraud investigation. And he wants to know if this course would be helpful for him.
Yeah, I think this is similar to the question that one candidate from CS background asked. Yes, financial fraud and all, definitely you'll be able to understand the laws that regulates these kind of offenses. Since because it's a techno-legal aspect, so the laws are also not very simple that one can just understand it by reading. So in the classroom sessions, in fact, we help the scholars to understand how technically these provisions can be interpreted or legally these provisions can be implemented. So therefore, financial fraud perspective, you will understand the legal aspect on one hand. And on the other hand, even in those kind of cases, how to collect the evidence from internet. So suppose it's an offense committed in the course of online banking scenario. So how to collect the evidence? How do you present the evidence? How to collect the evidence from abroad? Suppose it's a bank located elsewhere, or it's an evidence located in a server elsewhere. So therefore, yes, this will be definitely an area that you should look for if you want to further pursue in understanding financial fraud investigation or similar. So that's where, as I said earlier, we will also have a look at RBI guidelines, specific provisions from the current laws of the country as well as that which applies at the international level.
Right. Thank you so much, ma'am. There's one more question from Dr. Senthil Kumar, who's working as a Chief Information Security and Privacy Officer in an MNC, and has a similar question about whether this course would be useful for him.
Right. So we've had a lot of CISOs as well as privacy professionals taking our course from the first batch. And as I've been repeatedly saying, I'm proud to say that a lot of MNCs, which I don't want to name now, but then currently their privacy policies are drafted by our scholars. After pursuing the course, they've contributed to the policy framework in this manner, at least to the institution. Yes, so this will be in fact the course which is meant for people like you. So you will have that inputs that you already have from the technology field, from privacy field, but how do you integrate it to the existing law framework? Because privacy law, for example, is not just data privacy related law. So we usually see how it gets interrelated to constitutional validity aspect. So any policy that you frame for your institution should be in compliance with the law as well as the constitutional requirements. So all that, in fact, is something that we deal with in the course. So therefore, as a CISO, it will be a very good learning, in fact, from the field that you get, as well as a privacy professional. Since as a CISO, you'll be looking at cybersecurity related incidences and all. So how legally these can be tackled is one of the aspect that we deal in the course.
Shobha Satish.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Hello. Good evening. Actually, I wanted to know how many days this course is, months or year, and when will be the exams, how it is conducted, online or offline?
So Shobha, this is a year-long course. It will.
Okay.
It was until now the classes have been on campus, but those are not compulsory to attend. This will also have some online classes, so it would be in a hybrid mode. You have 2 exams each year: the annual examinations in June and a supplementary examination in December.
Ma'am, I'm a banker and I don't have knowledge of legal or technical knowledge of IT. Yes, I have some basic knowledge, what like every common person has. I had interest of knowing into cyber crime and other things. That's why I have taken admission. Now, during the course, will you have high level of legal knowledge requirement or technical knowledge requirement? And for that, I have to learn coding or something like that. That's the one thing I wanted to know.
Okay, so I've again answered a similar question. So we definitely get into the basic aspects of both the technology as well as law when we teach, since we keep in mind that people are from different domains and should understand from each of the domain. So therefore, you don't have to have any basic knowledge of neither the technology nor the law. This is where you learn actually the two and the integration of the two. So it's not required. Like you don't have to even understand how a computer system functions. You don't have to even understand, to begin with the course, you don't have to have this extent of knowledge. Not necessary. If you just have that interest to learn the course and use the knowledge that you gain from is all that is required to understand and utilize the knowledge that you get from the course. And in fact, some of our resource persons are also from the bank domain. So they also started like you, and today they're on the other side. They're in fact like teaching the course. So which means that this is a domain that can be tapped by any or every if you just have that interest to learn both. Yeah, so we'll also keep that in our mind when we deliver the course.
Thank you, ma'am. Sunita, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you so much for the detailed information in the webinar. The question I had is, once we complete the course successfully, will we get some kind of a counseling or some kind of a guidance from the experts in the university to what are the different opportunities that we can get into?
Ma'am, are you taking that question?
I can just partially answer unless there are changes in the university policy approval. So otherwise, we don't formally get into this placement or other aspects, but generally as teachers, yes, informally we do help if some scholar is looking out for some opportunity, but we don't take it like formally as our responsibility. So so the object is definitely not to cater to the need in the industry or in the domain. It's not that. The object is to in fact disseminate the knowledge that is required in the domain. But yes, as and when we get to know about the opportunity, all like usually our scholars earlier have come up with their own Google group platforms, WhatsApp platforms. So that's very important information will be shared. But that's something that we don't officially do. But personally, yeah, teachers they do take this step in helping their scholars.
Yeah, if I may add, that is true for all our programs. We don't have like a formal placement cell and we don't get involved with actual, job applications, etc. But even throughout the course, on many occasions, you would be discussing sectors, you would be discussing what are various job opportunities. So throughout the course journey itself, you will have an idea. And hopefully by the end of it, you would also be better equipped to know where is it that you want to go and what are the different organizations that you can explore.
Okay, that helps. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, there's one question by Yashwant where he wants to know that whether international cyber laws, for example, GDPR and SOPA, these laws will be covered or some kind of introduction would be provided to these.
So as I mentioned earlier, the focus is largely to understand Indian law framework. But yes, when we discuss about privacy protection, we do look at GDPR. But since these are like region-specific conventions or like laws, at least GDPR is quite wider compared to the others. So yes, to an extent, we do cover GDPR, We do cover other laws of the other countries or the regions, but not in detail. So GDPR we do focus, but not other regional laws or international laws. Since actually, to be frank, in fact, like we will discuss this in the course also, none of the law in this domain exists at the international level. So what we generally assume as being an international is just a regional convention. So it might not bind us. So we look more for like what laws Indian industries and individuals should comply with if they're operating from India or even beyond India, having their business establishments in India. So that's where like GDPR becomes relevant and not like many other regional conventions.
Thank you, ma'am. Chaitanya, please go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah. Good evening, all. Am I audible?
Yes, please go ahead and ask your question.
I'm a chartered accountant, certified information systems auditor, and also a certified fraud examiner with over 15 years of experience, and I have my own practice currently. I have 4 questions. One, generally PhDs require a PG. So does this grant me any admission to any of the PhD courses? Number 1. Number 2, I would like to know where can I get the previous questions, answers, details. I mean, is it available in the website? And number 3, do we get any recorded classes, or what are the other learning mechanisms that we have?
May I take Apurvaji?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Based on postgraduate diploma, you cannot apply for PhD. You need a master's to apply for a PhD.
Okay.
The second one, the previous year's question papers and key answers are uploaded in your user ID. In course of time, it will be available.
Okay, and I believe we are required to submit a thesis, or is there anything like that for this course?
All those details will be provided to you in due course.
So there is a dissertation that you need to submit for all of those courses. And when the program begins, if you are not acquainted with how to write a dissertation, there will be a workshop also available.
All right.
And you have to choose a topic with some guidance from the program coordinator, which is Dr. Nagaratna, but pursue it largely by yourself. With regard to some lectures being available online, like I said, some of the classes may be made available. Some of them actually discuss some sensitive topics, so we may not be able to make them available online. But this year we are attempting to provide you with some interactive course material as well, apart from the soft copy of the reading material that you will have. So those, and of course, if the faculty, they come across any interesting article or something that they seek to share with the students, those are also sent across to the cohort. So all of those things will be provided.
Okay, I have one final question. Actually, it is mentioned that you have your exam centers in Pune as well, but with a disclaimer saying it might be subject to cancellation. So generally, does it happen in Pune or other places, or is it only in Bangalore?
No,
it happens in Pune, Delhi, and Kolkata, apart from Bangalore. But the disclaimer has proven specifically true this year because of the ongoing pandemic. So this year we are unable to hold them at any center. We are attempting to have online examination this year. So for next year, we would, if situation permitting, we would have some physical exams as well as online exams for some students.
Oh, okay.
Ravi Prakash, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening to everybody.
Good evening.
Madam, I have 3 questions. Number 1 is during this pandemic corona period, many of them have lost jobs, including myself. If it is possible to give installment in payment of fees, is more useful, especially in this situation. Number 1, at least 2 installments. Number 2, can we practice in the High Court or some other courts? Number 3, as a legal advisor, can we practice this? These are the 3 things which I want to know.
Sorry to say that, sir, there is no provision for installments. And based on this diploma degree, you cannot practice. One should be a LLB holder to practice in the court of law. You can be a legal advisor or a consultant acquiring this knowledge.
We empathize with your situation and we are cognizant of how the pandemic has impacted many lives. But for now, we are unable to offer the provision of paying this in installments.
Okay, madam, it's no problem.
Aditya, please go ahead and ask your question.
So my question is regarding the contact classes that you mentioned. So first is like in how many times in a month this will happen and for how long? And now you're saying it will be available in online mode as well. But the classes which you were not able to make available because of the sensitive content. So like, is there any provision like this will be part of the study material or things like that?
Contact classes are organized once in a month. And the online classes are often will be parallel to that. So those will also be once in a month. However, if none of these classes are compulsory for students to attend, so if you miss out on one class and it is not available online, then unfortunately you do miss out on it. The course material is designed in a way in which students can read it and also get adequate knowledge and appear for the exams with some guidance from the faculty. If you feel that you have some specific questions which have not been answered by reading the course material and you've missed a class, do send them to the department and we will try and see if we can get those answered by the faculty.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Sunil, please go ahead and ask your question.
So I completed my BSc from KSOI Karnataka State Open University, and that has been de-recognized by UGC currently, and there is a court case that is going on related to this. But I completed my course when KSOU was still recognized by UGC. So will my degree be considered valid for this course or will it not?
Sunil, we may have to look into a few more details before we answer that question. So may I request you to write to us with some links to the court order that you are mentioning, etc. At ded@nls.ac.in, and then maybe we can give you a more informed response.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I'll do that.
Thank you. Prakhar, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, ma'am. As this field is rapidly evolving and changing, once we complete our course, will we be provided any assistance or guidance in future? And the second question is, I have already registered for the course and the course material will be available maybe in 2 or 3 months. So meanwhile, what can you suggest I can do? Because being an engineer from technical background, and currently I'm pursuing law. I'm first year student. I'm eagerly waiting to start my journey on this field. So may you please suggest?
Right. So let me correct that the material will be available in August. So it's not 3 months. And also once you complete the course, you do become a part of the alumni community. And there are ways in which you can interact with them and mutually exchange knowledge and opportunities. The faculty also respond to some emails from alumni who seek guidance on something specific, but it's not in a way in which we constantly keep in touch or we guide you at every step. Of course, if there's something important, we are available. But other than that, you will have your very educated peers as well to brainstorm with. We'll take the next question from Parth Pandya.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
I have 2 questions. First question is regarding to the cyber forensics. As we mentioned, we understand the law is one part of the diploma course. But again, what about the cyber forensic? Because maybe the forensic required some kind of practical assignment or maybe sometime practical knowledge to be presented. Do we have any provision to perform those practical for forensics, or only is a theory part of forensics?
Yeah. Parth, as I mentioned earlier, we'll have demo method for these specific sessions. So where we show how evidences are usually identified, collected, stored, and all. So you will have demos of these tools and forensic procedure. And then that comes up along with the theoretical explanation. So therefore, it's not purely theoretical, it will also have practical sessions. where we show how the tools are used and procedure, cyber forensic procedure is conducted.
And if the classes are happening, my second question is, if the classes are happening from Bangalore, if we are based out of Bangalore, can we come to university and attend those classes?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Suresh Babu, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello.
Yes, please go ahead.
When will that written exams will take place, ma'am?
So we have annual exams in June.
Okay.
Supplementary examination in December every year.
Okay. What is the total marks, the examination?
100 marks.
Hello.
Yes,
Am I
please.
audible, ma'am? Actually, ma'am, I did this basic one diploma course from Asian School of Cyber Law, Delhi. So the basic things are already covered up to those source. My question is it some in this course material, is it go some in a detailed extent, or it is the basic idea of the law concept and those services? Because as I am belonging to some IT, e-commerce, and marketing part of business, so it will be helpful, like if we have some elaborative like a solution that will be helpful for us also.
Srirang, I don't know the contents of the course you've already done at the Asian Law College. But as I said earlier, since we keep in mind that our scholars will be from different fields, so we start with the basic concepts, principles and all, but then we do also focus on extremely important issues more in-depthly. Like I'm sure end of the course, a scholar will know how to technically handle cybercrime incident, collect the evidence, and will also be well versed with the applicable provisions. So that's in fact the objective of the course. So since I don't know the contents of the course you've already done, I won't be able to make that comparative analysis. Maybe you can have a look at the course structure of our law school and your previous institution and decide.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chiranjeev. I have already registered for this year's program. Just wanted to understand when this year's classes are going to start. And the second follow-up question is, considering this pandemic and COVID situation, so I think it will be more on the online pattern. So if you can highlight on that, how things are going to go ahead. Thank you.
So the classes will start from September. We will try and make all the material available to you in August. The classes, the ones that we want to schedule on campus, of course, are dependent on how the pandemic proceeds. And in case the situation is as it is right now, we may be only restricted to online classes. But it is our sincere hope that that will change as the year progresses. All right, one last question from Anil. Anil, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good evening. Quite quickly, typically what will be the schedule in a week for the online classes?
So classes are conducted on weekends.
Okay.
And they are 2 hours for each lecture.
And roughly how many hours in the weekend?
8 hours on both the days.
But it's once in a month. So you just have it.
Okay, understood.
One of the weekend. Yeah,
Okay.
not all the weeks.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Just a few more logistical announcements because I see the questions are being repeated. The application deadline is on July 31st. You may apply online and make the payment. Only once you make the payment are you considered admitted. You have to send us your documentation, which is required, and those details you can find on the application portal. If you are unable to send them by post, you can send us a soft copy with the reason why you aren't able to send us through post. Those should be self-attested, and at a later time, we may request for hard copies. The printed material in hard copy can be made available at a small cost. Again, the details are on the website. Soft copy will be made available to all the admitted candidates. Thank you, everybody. I especially want to extend my gratitude to Dr. Nagaratna, who made a lot of time on a Saturday evening to come and interact with all our admitted and prospective students. I hope I will see a lot of you in contact classes someday on campus in Bangalore. I would also like to thank my colleagues, Ms. Sushila Suresh, who was a part of the webinar and also answered many queries very patiently, also on chat, and Lingaraj and Satya, who have been anchoring this, technically and doing all the logistics work. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a great weekend. Please be safe and please be well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.